And welcome again to the Gleand Podcast, fastest hour of the week. We're glad you guys took time out of your schedule to tune in with us. Now, tonight is different than what you're used to, but we are taking time out tonight to interview two of the candidates. We have one that's running for the school board, one that's running for our county commissioners. And I know some people are like, yeah, but this is a church podcast. Well, I believe it's time for the church to get involved in politics. I believe our voice needs to be heard, and we need to be able to look for candidates that line up with values of the Word of God, because as long as you line up with the Word of God, things work right. When you go out of God's will and out of His Word, things begin to follow the line of destruction. And in the book of Proverbs 29 and verse 2, he says that when the righteous rule or are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked man rules, the men and women groan. And I believe that when you look at our nation, when you look at everything going on from top level government all the way down to our local municipalities, school boards, county commissioners, city boards, everything, we need righteous people in these positions to rule in favor of God's word. Not only that, but I believe the two that we're interviewing tonight seek God for the decisions that they make. And I've known one of them for a pretty good while. The other one, I just really spent 45 minutes on the phone last week with him, but we really connected a lot of the same views. And I wanted to take this opportunity on our podcast to let you guys be able to hear their viewpoints so that you can be informed. The Bible also says that the people perish for a lack of knowledge. That's not just biblical. We have to have a knowledge of what our candidates are standing for, what they're going to do, because for so long, and I was guilty of it, I would find out if you had an R beside your name, that was all I needed to know, and you had my vote. But we're past that. We're past those days. We have to know individually what a candidate stands for and what they're going to do. Some people may say, yeah, but county level stuff's not that important. Now, you better believe it's important. We have to start from the bottom up. Our school system, we need people in our school systems, because Satan is coming after your kids. I don't care. We can argue that later. But if you study out Scripture, Satan always went after the next generation so that he could have a generation devoid of God that denied God and His power. So we have to put people in office that's going to say, wait a minute, with CRT and all this other stuff, enough is enough. So tonight, we're going to start out with... my brain just died. Let me catch myself back. With Meghan Almond. She's running for the at-large seat, correct, for the school board. I've met Meghan and her family, beautiful family. They're great people. They make some of the best honey, if you like honey. They just don't make enough of it. But they are local in the community. Her husband's a firefighter. And I know about that being in the fire department, but they're a beautiful family. We love them. And we're going to get started with her. And Meghan, if you will, just take just a few minutes and just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running.
Sure. I have pretty much lived in Stanley County almost my whole life now. I come from a military family. We moved here in 1994, and I started at Stanfield Elementary School in the 4th grade. That's when Stanfield Elementary was a K through 8. Mm-hmm. We can go way back and remember that. And went on to West Stanley High School and graduated from West Stanley in 2002. I also met my husband, Jason Almond, when I was in high school. And we ended up graduating, and he went on to become a full-time fireman. He works for the city of Charlotte full-time. And then he also works part-time at a local fire department on the western end of the county. We have 3 boys, 14, 12, and 5. And I started getting involved really about 3 to 4 years ago now. I was a lot like what you were talking about, letter R, I voted for the letter R all my life. But that was about as deep as it got. And then COVID happened. And I just saw the travesty there of what happened with our kids, and started getting more involved and realized that if I was going to do something, I was going to have to do it myself instead of complaining all the time. And so I became really good friends with Levi's wife here, Dee, and we started really fighting and pushing against all the COVID stuff. So I ran for school board 2 years ago, and I lost by 67 votes. It's not a lot.
Right, that's close.
That was a close race, and I learned a lot, and learned a lot more over the last couple years, and that's why I've decided to run again. It's going to take putting God back into the school system,
right,
and creating a school system that's going to fight for the family dynamic of the way God intended it, instead of trying to push the world's agenda into the public sector.
Right. Awesome. What are some of the key challenges that you see facing Stanley County School Board now? What are some of the key challenges that you see are the big issue, and, you know, kind of what is your philosophy or your ideas behind changing some of those things?
I think the biggest issue is probably just going to be transparency right now.
Right.
Because if that will listen and communicate effectively with parents. That's why we don't understand what's going on with the busing shortages. We don't understand why teachers are leaving the county.
Right.
We don't understand why they're closing schools down.
Yeah.
You know, Ridgecrest and Oakboro. Ridgecrest has been closed down for 12 years now.
Yeah.
Sitting there just totally, you know, it's horrible if you go look at it. But why are we having schools sitting empty, just rotting, when we are at capacity? So transparency is the main issue. Yeah. And we've got to dive deeper into why are we not being transparent? Why are we having these budgeting issues and fruit of it?
Yeah, that's something.
There you go. That's it. Yeah. So I know there's teams going in and doing practices there. So I've tried to find the monthly bill on what it would be, because you know there still has to be some form of insurance. Right. But I can't seem to get that.
Right. And that's another issue of transparency.
Correct.
You know, and you know, then you have to look at the whole, because the county's growing. Yeah. It's, you know, and that's something, you know, we'll get into more, Levi, when we get to talking about the commissioners. But as far as the growth, you know, at some point, I know 12 years ago, we were kind of at a stagnant point in the county. But now we're looking 12 years forward. Yeah. What kind of money, because I know it's been vandalized very severely. You know, what kind of money are we looking at as taxpayers that is going to be like, okay, how much is it going to cost to open this school back up?
Well, there's two things there. In my personal belief, in my opinion, I don't believe that the school system wants to open Ridgecrest back up. Right. They are talking about school consolidation right now. Right. They're wanting to take 4 high schools and condense down to 2 super schools. What does the county want? They have yet to ask that question, number one. Number two, I've actually looked into some possible cost estimates, because, I mean, you're looking at foundational issues. I was out there in the pouring rain a few weeks ago, and all the gutter systems are off of the building, so you just have water pouring into the foundation, and it's just all going. The drainage system is not up to date, so there's no telling how much it's going to cost. But I've heard the figures of $10 million thrown out there. I've also heard rumors. So take this with a grain of salt. Right. That there are some county commissioners that would write a check tomorrow to open up the school. I don't know how easy that is. Right. But I do know that, in my personal opinion, I think the county wants community schools. Right. I don't believe they want super schools, because when you're dealing with super schools, you're dealing with obedience issues. You're dealing with more teacher-student ratios.
Lower test scores.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's the biggest one, Levi. Thank you. The lower test scores are huge.
Yeah.
It's a statistical fact.
Yeah.
Well, and that's, and this interview is kind of fluid, so we're kind of, bouncing off of responses, remarks. But, even when, and thank God my kids are out of school now.
Yeah.
And I've had some people say, well, if your kids are out of school, then why are you so involved in this? But as a pastor, if a kid comes to my church, I'm responsible for them.
Yeah.
Not just their spiritual, but I feel like I'm responsible to speak for them on the physical and natural side. And I encourage any pastors that may watch this, you need to speak for these kids because we're their voice. They don't have a voice. But, with the whole transition and thing like that, with money, like it kind of leads into my next question of, what's up with this and what was the purpose behind the house bought in Locust?
That's a good question. So, there's speculation and then there's, some facts that we have. We have yet to get a definite answer from the board as to why they purchased that house. But what I can tell you is that when COVID was going on, Stanley County received a significant amount of funds in the form of something called ESSER funds.
Okay.
I believe it was $27 million.
Sounds right.
Don't hold me to that exact
Right.
number. But with that came 4 psychiatrists. So when the state and federal, because ultimately we know it comes from the federal, when the money was handed down, the psychiatrist came in, and I believe the price range to pay these 4 psychiatrists is around the $470,000 mark. So if you divide that up between 4 psychiatrists, I don't know if they're using materials. I don't know. We don't know what's going on in that house. But
besides, it's not being used.
besides that, it's not being used. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't say that out loud.
Didn't they also buy a couple of minivans or something
They
too
also-
to transport students to that location?
That's what was said.
Yeah.
And nobody would deny that.
Yeah.
But it was 2 Honda Odysseys that they also purchased.
Yeah,
So
I had talked to some county commissioners to remain unnamed, and they had no clue at the time.
nobody does.
And that
Yeah.
even the house was bought. So.
But my question is, we have counselors in a school system.
Right.
But what is a educational system doing, bringing psychiatrists into a school system?
Yeah. I mean, that's very concerning to me.
Absolutely.
And that goes back to when I was in school, and I know with y'all, we had our testing. I mean, and this goes all the way from federal down to our state. But, when we had testing, it was the CATs.
Yeah.
I think y'all, the pressure was put on us to pass the test.
Yeah.
And then I've watched, even when my kids were in school, when I was in school, there was no such thing as testing anxiety. That was not a thing.
Right.
But I know that everything has been shifted to the point that if these kids don't pass the test, then the teachers are now under pressure for their job, which you could argue that point a little bit, but they begin to put so much pressure on students that now we have this anxiety. Yeah. So they're doing all these things, and then, we need psychiatrists. Well, okay, so we take $27 million and we hire 4 psychiatrists. We buy a house, and this is supposed because nobody yet knows where $27 million went.
Not accounted for.
None of you parents or anybody, taxpayers in the county, you don't know where that $27 million went. And Jared Dennis, the superintendent, and the school board don't feel like you deserve an answer. They don't feel like they need to tell you where it went. And if they say, well, nobody's asked, that's a load of crap because a lot of people have asked.
That's right.
But, so we buy a house and we hire 4 teachers or psychiatrists that's $400 and something thousand a year. And then we buy 2 vans, and you have to insure those vans. You have to keep maintenance on those vans.
Yeah.
At what point is that all that $27 million went to, or is that for a certain span of time? And then how do we budget that after the fact? Or are those psychiatrists gone after the money runs out. You know, my thing is when you hire people, you've got to look at longevity and finances to do these things. And when I look at $27 million, the things I've noticed, and I know it hurts parents big time because I talk to the parents that go to church here. These kids are constantly having to raise money. Yeah. You have to buy your own school paper. You have to bring in Kleenexes. You have to bring in hand sanitizer, pens, pencils, everything. The parents, we're paying taxes for school systems, but then we're still having to pay out of our own pockets for our kids to go to school. And it's like, wait a minute, you just got $27 million. And then the whole lottery thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I talked about that the other week at church, and I think it was over $3 or $4 billion that this state put in.
Where is it?
Where is that money? This county was in the millions of how much people in our county spent on lottery tickets. Where's that money?
Yeah.
Why can we not have that money?
Yeah.
You know, and when I was in school, and y'all, it was the big push for college. You got to go to college, got to go to college. I took my freshman year, I took a little bit of prep stuff for college, and I said, no, this ain't me. Yeah. You know, I'm not knocking college, but I learned so much in vocational classes. Mm-hmm. You know, I had auto mechanics, bricklaying, agriculture, electronics, because it wasn't, well, you're just learning that. No, I learned to work with my peers, problem solve, communicate. Mm-hmm. That, I believe, we need. You know, West Stanley's about the only thing that's got that now.
If I can actually make a comment, because I know with that, I think what's happened is the focus has gone from giving back to society.
Right.
We are now in a mental health crisis with our children. We're going to pour, and I'm not, making that sound like there's not, because I do feel like there are certain things that we need to do to make sure that our children are emotionally healthy as well. But honestly, that falls on the parent, not the educational system.
Yeah.
What's the definition of emotional health anyway? Because is it someone who's down here from New York that's been hired as a psychiatrist? Because that house, whenever it became populated with people, there was a vehicle sitting there with New York plates.
Mm-hmm, that's true.
Which I find completely bizarre, knowing our community. But whose definition of mental health? Whose definition of emotional health?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's making that call?
That's a very good question. Because
I mean, some people think that belief in God is a mental disorder.
Right.
Yeah.
You know.
But,
I don't think we think
we're
that.
pouring all of our energy into a mental health crisis. That are we creating it with all this transgenderism and allowing boys into girls' bathrooms? What happened to making sure that our children are going to grow up to become successful adults to give back to society?
Right.
Instead, we're pouring all of our energy into social emotional learning, which is just a leg of CRT, which honestly, in my opinion, goes back to why these 4 psychiatrists are even here in the house in Locust.
Right.
I could be wrong, but that's my opinion.
Well, and that, I don't know how true. I've heard I've actually had some students say they've saw it themselves. But, the whole people dressing up like cats and that getting to use litter boxes. Yeah. That to me, that is the definition of an emotional or mental illness.
Absolutely.
And, I've said, I've said this before that, if your child wants to be a cat, that's fine. But please take them to the vet, have them spayed and neutered so we don't continue the problem. Because a litter box in a school system. That's right. You can't do nothing but laugh about that because it is ludicrous. It is absurd. And to think that our intellect has been dumbed down so much that we think it's acceptable for a kid to use the restroom in a litter box or dress up and purr like a cat and be referred to as a cat, we've got issues here. Right. Yep.
That's past what the educational system can do.
That's where that's a God issue.
That's right.
That's where you get into morality. And, that kind of leads me up to this question of this is something I would be willing to do, and I think there's other parents. I've always thought this would be good, and I wouldn't have a problem because of safety. I would go through a rigorous background check, but I think it's a good idea. What's your thoughts on even having it in the county where if some parents or pastors wanted to just sign up and say, you know what, I'll walk the halls of the school on Tuesday and Thursday. But having some, and I'm not knocking women here, somebody, well, you're just a chauvinist. No, there's something about a man, a father figure, an authority figure, walking halls, connecting with these kids that I think some of these kids, they're missing.
Absolutely.
You know, what would be your thoughts on something like that?
I think that would actually answer a lot of the issues.
Right.
You look at children that are coming from fatherless homes. Mm-hmm. It is an issue because that's the way God created it.
Right.
Is for the man to be the head of the household.
Yeah.
And, you know, the husband and wife are supposed to partner. And when a household is missing that father figure, and when a church can actually come in and partner, I mean, I think that would make a world of a difference.
Yeah.
If I were on the school board, I would say absolutely come on in, help these children.
Yeah.
Because that's what they need.
Yeah. Now, moving on, because I could stay on some of that all night long. But what about as far as, I remember, I think it was maybe the first of this year, but it's been an ongoing issue with the shortage of bus drivers and, you know, making sure buses are staffed. Yeah. You know, I think when I was in school, or maybe you guys, that was usually your janitors or your coaches or your assistants. But now we're having to hire, you know, I mean, to me, it was a little funny when we had those storms come through the other week and they canceled school because I heard a remark with, well, the buses can't safely operate in 30 mile an hour. And I'm thinking, what's the difference about the super schools? I think the school boards, and just like some of this redistricting they just did a few years ago, that was absolutely, I mean, we have kids in Oakboro that could be in West Stanley a lot faster, now have to go to, and I'm not knocking South Stanley at all. South Stanley's a great school, but you have parents that are now having to drive 20 to 30 minutes out of their way to drop kids off and then turn around and drive an hour and a half into Charlotte or somewhere to work and then try to rush. I mean, they added more pressure and complications to the parent side of it just to make the schools kind of balance out, you know?
You wonder. Yeah.
So, you know, but anyway, back to the school bus issue. What's kind of some thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's actually a couple of solutions I think that could fix that. I have heard that getting your, is it class 2? Yeah, class 2 to drive a bus license.
Chauffeur's license, I think. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
I have heard that it is a little bit harder to get that this day and time from the DMV. But here's what we could do. You know, there's a lot of teachers that I've talked to that would be willing to drive a bus. Do I feel like they have to? I don't think it's a good idea.
Right.
Because they have a whole nother job that they need to go to. But if they're willing.
Yeah.
And to get paid extra.
Yeah.
Why can't the board say, you know what, I will pay for you to go and get your license, which I think is around $600.
Right.
But you need to agree to work for me and drive this bus for the next year.
Yeah.
You know, and do that in a contract so that way the board's not just paying for somebody to go get their license.
Right.
And then that person never drives a bus.
Yeah.
That could be a very simple solution.
Yeah.
To in an emergency case like out in Stanfield, I believe it was bus 91.
90-something.
That did not pick up children.
Yeah.
For the longest time. In fact, I would love to ask the lady that was having all the issues if she's still having issues. I need to follow up with that.
Yeah.
But there were parents that had to quit their job. I believe one dad actually lost his job. It's a horrible circumstance, but the state is in a crisis for bus drivers. But I think one way that Stanley can go ahead and start fixing the issue is by telling these teachers or telling these janitors, like, listen, I will pay for your license if you will work for me for 1 year.
Yeah.
And that way it takes at least that load off. And then the last thing is bus drivers need help because there's too many disciplinary issues on a bus.
Yeah.
Bus drivers need some sort of assistant or somebody that can get the children under control while the bus driver does their job in driving that bus.
Yeah.
So if there's somebody that can come alongside and help do that, I think we would solve a big issue right there.
Yeah, and they had the state has made it harder, not just the state, but even on the federal level, to get a commercial style driving license. And the reason I know that, one of the main reasons I was so ready to get, I drove trucks for 27 years, and I watched when I got mine. I just went and got mine, and now they put in drivers. You have to go through a school. The school's several thousand. I think it's about $8,000 for a Class A. And I'm watching them as, driving for so long. They're not putting out safer drivers. They're putting out worse drivers because they're all you're worried about is the law and not the ability.
Right.
Yeah. So they are making it harder in the guise of safety, but it's not safety, but it's there again, we've got to be able to put the right people in the right offices to say, here's how we fix the problem.
Yeah. Can I piggyback on that for a second? So one thing that burns me up as a organizational leader is the concept of servant leadership that's missing in this equation. So with 7 school board members, right? You've got a superintendent, and you've got dozens of people that work in effectively a corporate office in the county that don't directly teach any students. If you treat the school system like a manufacturing facility, you're trying to satisfy your customer, right? And your customer is the children and their education. And if anything gets in the way, if I have to deliver something to my customer, that's the thing I need to address the most. And so kids not getting to school is the most important thing. Issue, yeah. It's the most important thing because you cannot satisfy your customer, the parents and the students of Stanley County Schools. So as a leader, I think that the school board themselves, as well as the superintendent, should be willing to roll up their sleeves and drive a bus.
Absolutely.
I agree with that.
I mean, it's been done in other jurisdictions.
Yeah. Well,
There's an article last year on the news, I think it might have been on the Daily Wire, about a superintendent that was driving a school bus because he couldn't hire a bus driver.
Yeah. Well, and that rings true to me in any institution or any business, like you're saying. I mean, it's just like here, I'm the lead pastor, but if I have somebody, I'm trained enough, I can take care of our sound system. I can make sure our PowerPoint present. I've been through that stuff, so if we have somebody out, because it's going to happen, I don't sit there with the attitude of, well, I'm senior pastor and I'm not. That's not. No job is beneath me because I'm the head, and I agree with you wholeheartedly there. I think it would speak volumes if our superintendent and some of our office staff there, like you say, that's just in a corporate office, would actually step up and say, you know what? I'll drive the bus or I'll work the ball game or be more visible and be more accessible. Yeah. And I think, because like I said at the beginning, it seems like when they get in these offices, now it's we're above you. You don't understand these things. You don't. No, we're the parents. Certitude. Yeah. Help me understand. And I've been in so many of these school board meetings and they treat these things like everybody in the audience is too ignorant to understand what's going on, and how dare you raise a question?
My opponent actually shook his finger at a parent when she went up to ask him what he was going to do to fix the busing issue.
Yeah.
He shook his finger at her and said, "What would you have me do?" And he said it in that tone. And, that's not her job.
Right.
That's his job.
That's his job. What he gets.
That's his job. That is his job. And if he's not doing his job, then he needs to get out of the way and let somebody do it for him.
Absolutely. Last question for you for now. Security in the schools, as far as, I know a lot of people say, well, we live out in the country. It's not, nothing's ever going to happen here. We don't know that. We never know. Yeah. there's been talks of metal detectors and things like that. You know, what is there's no way to make a school, I believe, 100% safe just because you have human factors, human error. But there is ways to make it as safe, way I like to say it, safe as possible. What are some of your ideas or concepts that you would like?
Yeah. I mean, we've got to be proactive, not reactive, number one. But right now, I know for a fact that our school board has actually shut down our buildings to allow our sheriff's department to come in and train to become effective in a building. I know this.
They disallowed it.
Yeah, they
disallowed it.
Yeah.
I don't know what I said there, but apologize if it was wrong. But yeah, our sheriff's department used to come in and train in the buildings when, you know, it was closed. Early in the mornings when they don't have a lot of calls. It's prime opportunity for individuals to go in and train. And the school board was afraid that it was going to put a bad image on the schools. And so they kicked everybody out, and now they're not allowed to train.
Wow.
What I would like to do, and my opponent is actually over security. He sits on the committee, and he never has a comment, which tells me he's not doing his job.
Right.
But if I were to sit on that committee, I would get in touch with our local fire departments, our local police departments, our sheriff's department, and our EMS. And I would start having our sheriff start to put together groups for individuals to go in and do training, active shooter training. Absolutely. We have the qualified people here in our county that know what to do already. Let these people do their job.
Absolutely. And then last part of that is what?
Hey, Wes, hang on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Megan, who's currently at that seat right now that you're trying to work on?
Who are you running against?
I'm running against Dr. Rufus Leffler.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? And this is no disrespect to Mr. Leffler.
Absolutely.
But what dog does he have in this fight for the school board?
That's a great question. And it's one that he does not answer.
Yeah, I've noticed that. And he's been, how long has he been on the?
This will be his third term if he wins.
Right.
So he's already been on for 8 years. My question to him would be, what have you done in the last 8 years?
Yeah, because I know when he's been confronted,
it's not good.
It's not good. And, you know, that's kind of my thing to those of you watching online, you know, you've heard a little bit of this. The people sitting on the school board right now, some of them, they're not up for re-election right now, right?
There's actually 5 school board members up for re-election. 5. And I am the only one that is running against an incumbent.
So there's 5 seats that, if we put the right people in those 5 seats, can shift completely. 100. Our school system could do a 180.
Absolutely.
If we put the right people in place.
Yeah, but I think going into going into this is the good old boy club that's been going on in Stanley County. Nobody's wanting to address the good old boy club.
Yeah.
And then that's been the problem. We're not able to move forward because we've got backwards deals going on.
You're right.
We've got people that have been in office that are really just sitting, taking up a seat, but not really doing anything or providing any kind of value. To the school board and or the county commissioners if we're
You're
to be factual about it.
Yeah.
So I think it's time to, for people to hear what these comments are, to get up with Megan and Levi, have a discussion with them, talk to them, reach out to them maybe through social media or some way, or getting in contact with them and really understanding who they are as individuals and what they stand for. And I think 90% of people would line up to those values versus the incumbents that are currently just taking up a seat.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100% correct.
I had one person ask the question, what can be done about the failing schools in the county? I'm thinking as far as the test scores and the education. What are some things there as far as, everything keeps being dumbed down so that the scores look higher.
Yeah.
what's some things that can be addressed on the county level?
That's actually my passion right there. Our school report cards, the majority of our schools are in the D's, C's, and I believe there's 1 or 2 F's, if I'm not mistaken.
And they even changed the scores a while back, the percentage to change what a letter grade was.
Yeah. And what is going to have to happen, and this is going to be where it's so important to make sure that you are voting the correct House member in. If you are not paying attention to that race, you need to, because our House representative can actually start to shift the way legislation is done. We are going to have to vote in a state superintendent, Michelle Morrow.
Okay.
If you don't know who that is, look her up. She is on fire. She is somebody that could change our educational system. Our lieutenant governor. I'm going to call out Alan Mashburn right now.
Yeah.
He is somebody that is on fire for education. And those two with a school board could completely change the way our educational system is. We've got to get away from Common Core.
Yeah.
We've got to get away from No Child Left Behind, because we are leaving children behind with that.
Yep.
And we've got to get back to the basics of what real education is and what real math, reading, grammar, get back to spelling. That's what it's going to take to start raising up our scores.
And Mark Robbins is governor.
And Mark Robinson is governor. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
But just real quick then, you talk to the people just a few minutes and tell them why you believe it's real crucial to vote in the upcoming primary. A lot of people don't think primaries, we'll just wait till the end, but tell them why y'all got to get off your butts and vote.
Yeah.
Quit sitting at home.
Yeah.
You've got to vote. Your life and your kids' lives and how they flourish, what things cost you, what your kids. It even starts at the primary. You have to get out and vote in the primary. But tell people, why it's important and why you feel like they should vote for you.
I'm a Republican. My opponent is a Republican. When you go to vote in March the 5th, you are going to vote which Republican is going to be on that November ballot. Since Stanley County is an all-Republican county, if I win in March, then I win November because I'm not going to be contested in November.
Right.
I do have a quote, if I can read
Absolutely.
it to end. I got it on my notes. It's by Samuel Adams, God-fearing man. And this is why people should vote in a primary. Samuel Adams said, "If ever a time should come when vain and aspiring men shall possess high seats in government, our country will stand in need of experienced patriots to prevent its ruin."
That's good.
And what's going to happen is if we start looking for people that have no motivation to become a career politician, is what it is.
Yeah.
If they are in it to do the right thing just to make their county better, we can get somewhere. I'm not in this to promote myself. I'm not in this to become a career politician.
Right.
I want to see the next generation thrive.
That's right.
And if we do what Mr. Adams said, then I think we can actually get somewhere in this country.
Yep. Awesome.
Vote for Meghan Almond.
Yeah.
Thought your name was Rufus.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, and I'm Pastor Wesley Barbie at Gleaning Mission Church, and I approve this message. So, yeah, but I've always wanted to say that. But anyway, we'll move on now to Levi. Like I said, I just talked to you on the phone for about 45 minutes the other week, and really liked what you had to say. I think we see a lot of the same, see things the same way. But just take a few minutes and tell the audience who you are, a little bit about yourself, and why you're wanting to run for the commissioner seat.
Sure. So, Wes, I was born in Locust, grew up in Stanley County, went to West Stanley. Actually was at West Stanley with both you and Josh.
Yeah.
I had to do a double take and try to remember because that was a long time ago.
I'm a lot grayer.
Yeah, me too. I graduated from West Stanley. I went to UNC Charlotte. At the time, UNC Charlotte's a fantastic school, but at the time that was the one I could afford to pay for.
Yeah.
And so worked full-time while I was at UNC Charlotte, graduated with degrees in finance and operations management, and got to work immediately thereafter. I ended up having to move to South Carolina for a job because there was really nothing around here. at the time. That's where I met my wife in South Carolina. And one thing led to another, different companies or whatnot. I ended up running a plant in Michigan. We lived there for a while, and then we moved back to Stanley County. I told some firemen the other night over in Norwood, we were talking. I was like, you never know. Some people know from the day they're born where their home is.
Yeah.
Okay. Some people, this is home. Okay. Some people at some point in their life move to their home and they say, oh, this is home.
Yeah.
And some people have to find it. Some people were already there. They didn't know. They leave. They say, oh, okay, now I get it.
Yeah.
And now they're home. I fit in that last category. So I had no, no notion that I would be here or not. But then when I left, I really figured it out.
Yeah.
Missed home. So we've been back here since 2013. I was gone for roughly 10 years. Wife and 2 kids, out of state out of state. And then my last son was born here. So I have a daughter that just turned 15 back in November. I have a son that's just turned 12 in January. And I have another son that's going to turn 10 at the beginning of March. And why am I doing this? I tell folks, I've started off with a lot of different sayings at the beginning, but first and foremost, it's for my kids, selfishly, my kids. But I think that at the end of the day, if I'm doing what's right for my kids, it's going to help the kids of Stanley County.
Absolutely.
And I just simply want there to be a future for my children that could resemble the past that I had.
Yeah.
In other words, the opportunity, the hometown environment, the things that really make Stanley County what it is. And I think that we're threatened in a lot of different ways. We spent a lot of time talking about the educational system. I think that's definitely got a lot of room for improvement. And I think it would be shocking to a lot of people. So people have kids that go to school. I know folks that we went to school with who have kids, and I have folks that I talk to that have had experiences with the school system, but they don't have deep knowledge of what's happening here. And it's shocking even to them, even with children in the school system. How do I know that? Because I was one of them. And I would love to see more people get involved, but people do different things, right? We work, we've got pastimes, we've got kids' sports, everything else. So if you can't get involved in the school system or you choose to do something else, just put somebody in there in these county positions that you feel like does care. And I think that's the most important thing we can do.
All right.
Yeah, that was, I guess, a reasonable introduction.
Well, I think one of the big things, and me and you touched on this a little bit on the phone, but I know this was, oh man, on social media, it was just, it was a firestorm because there was a lot of people that understood it, but then there was a mass majority that got confusing and conflicting stories about it. And before I go any further, if in my teen year, Stanley County was phenomenal in the 90s. I'm telling you, my childhood, it was a blast. This was an awesome place to be. I mean, everybody, it seemed like, took pride in this county.
Yep.
And it was just a great place to be. It didn't matter if you was from Oakbury, you could go to Albemarle and hang out, or, you could be down at South Stanley. You could be sitting down here in Oakbury at the Friday pickup on your tailgate on your truck.
Yep.
And, it was just a great county to be in and live, But the growth that's coming in now, a while back, they had the land use plan.
Yep.
And there was a lot of, I believe, like me and you talk, growth is good, but chaotic growth is not. I believe anything that has growth needs to have reins put on it so that the growth is mature and healthy and, excuse me, not just chaotic and booming over here. It needs to be controlled, and then the infrastructure be there. So talk a little bit about the land use plan. And
Sure. Well, one thing I didn't cover in the introduction is when we came back here to Stanley County, my family's farmed for years. My sister married a farmer in Union County. My dad and his siblings, they farmed. I kind of missed that, and I got into cattle. My nephew said, "Hey, you want to get some space? Why don't you go and put some cows on there?" I said, "Sure, let's put some cows on there." And I kind of fell in love with it, and so now I'm cutting hay all over the county. I've got some lease pastures, things like that. It's something that I enjoy. It's a break from kind of the grind of the corporate world. But what I see with the growth in Stanley County, and I'll preface this with, I have never seen one topic in the county where so many people feel the same way. You gonna make it?
I got dry.
I've never seen any other topic in the county where so many people feel the same way. There was a town hall forum that was done prior to the land use plan vote, and it was pretty unanimous, the feedback from folks that they wanted the county specific land protected. They want to see farming continue. It's the number one industry in Stanley County. They want to see the beauty of our county being protected, and they want to know that effectively our county is not going to be plundered by large developers that don't add any economic benefit to the county. The construction's coming from labor from outside the county. The materials are coming from outside the county, and. So it was a pretty encouraging feedback from the public, and unfortunately, when it went to the county commissioners, there were a number of commissioners that teamed up together. I don't know if there's any other way to say it. There were 4 that voted to instead of a 5-acre minimum for land inside the county, they voted for a smaller number. So at the end of the day, that's one example in our county of where so many people kind of congealed around one philosophy and said, "Hey, we want to protect this." It was farmers, it was people from towns. We want to protect our rural agriculture, and the commission defied that public opinion. And I think that we have to be very, very careful in our county, because they don't make more land. It is what it is. And if somebody wants to get into farming, even to have a pursuit in it or the opportunity in this county, that's being threatened on a daily basis.
Only 3 of the commissioners, or was it 2 of the commissioners, actually voted for the 5 acres?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
That it was, what Josh was talking about, the good old boy establishment.
Yeah.
Voted for the 3, but it was Patty Crump, Brandon King, and I believe Mike Barbie.
I think it was Mike Barbie.
That actually voted what the county wanted, which was 5 acres.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of misinformation put out there. I mean, there was even a group that put out a flyer about it.
Yeah, I saw that.
Attempting to influence a decision. But the misinformation was that, if I own 100 acres, I can't give my kid an acre of land. Well,
right.
That was never part of the deal. It was effectively designed to prevent people from, large developers or True Homes or whomever. I mean, there's a number of them, DR, whatever, from coming in and picking up, 20 acres of land and putting, 40 houses on it.
Yeah.
Farmland. And that had nothing to do with the cities. That's the other piece of misinformation that was scattered throughout. Nothing in that proposal limited cities from, building neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Everyone I've talked to, I've yet to personally speak to someone who did not support the 5 acres.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they're out there, but everybody I've talked to, recognizes that growth is coming to the county. They recognize that, you don't want to stop it. I'm not an anti-growth person, but I'm Lord bless me with a healthy dose of common sense.
Exactly.
And if we keep turning our rural county land into neighborhoods, we're not going to have any more rural county land.
Yeah, and there's not, I mean, I'm not against True Homes subdivisions or DR Horton or whoever, but at the same time, if you come in and every farm turns into that, at some point you have to say, well, okay, wait a minute, we don't have, like I said earlier, the infrastructure. We don't have the water to supply. We don't have the sewer systems, our school systems, all of those things. It's just like I said, I would give anything for this county to get one decent steakhouse. And I'm not knocking Yakin Valley or but a good steakhouse. You know, I told you they tore down Sagebrush, and I'm not knocking Biscuitville. I'm not knocking Starbucks, even though I do not like Starbucks. I think that's coffee for people who don't drink coffee. But anyway,
That's right.
we got a Biscuitville and a Starbucks. Why could we not have got a Longhorn or an Outback or something nice to be able to go out and eat, so we don't? Because right now, if you want to go somewhere like that on a date with your wife, you got to go out of county. You're not going to get it here.
Yep.
You know, I'm all about the growth, but reach out to some higher end stuff. It brings in, you know, some different. And I know with what we got going on in Albemarle and in the growth that's in Locust, I know that there's somebody out there would say, yeah, we'll put a restaurant here. You know, but even at that, you know, that was one of the things I'm glad you addressed. I had a lot of people tell me, well, yeah, but now I can't even give my kid an acre of land. I said, no.
No, it was never the case.
You can do with your land like you want. It's just preventing, you know, these big tract home companies from coming in and buying up everything, because they will, you know.
Yeah.
And
some people, I mean, some people, you know, talk about the libertarian or the freedom side of things, and I'm all about freedom. I'm all about the ability to make a choice. But you know, we established a county government, we established a state government, obviously very, very long time ago, and that was to help sort out through these types of issues. And you know, if you're talking about things that are happening in the county and in land that's already zoned rural agriculture, you're doing that to protect an industry that can easily be wiped away. There's a development in Locust where people have, it started about 10 years ago. It's still not complete. People bought houses in that development under the assumption that it would be finished. They were going to have a community center, community pool, some other things in that development. And 10 years later, it's still on hold.
Right.
And I'm told by people that live in that community, it's over sewer capacity. Yet dozens upon dozens, if not hundreds, of new homes have been approved and are being built on that same sewer system.
Right.
It seems like the lust for growth.
Oh, no, I agree 100% on that. Moving on, I think that was one of the big topics, but another one, I know in 2018, I believe it was, Stanley County was number one in the state for drug overdose.
Yep.
I was able to see, I think as of 2023, we were down, I think 40% roughly, which is good, but to me is nowhere near close enough.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's used to, it was sporadic of families that are affected by drugs. Now there's not a single family, I believe, in this county that has not been adversely affected by the drug use and maybe losing a family member to drugs and the overdose that's going on. What's some things that you propose to help fight against that in this community?
Yeah, so I mean, I think let's recognize the gains that have already been made. So there's been a community program put in place to help fight overdoses, people enabled with Narcan. You know, our sheriff's department's done a fantastic job. If you just Google fentanyl in Stanley County, you get a laundry list of major busts that have happened associated with our sheriff's department. Our EMTs have been recognized by the state for their work. So, I mean, I think it is important to look at what has happened and what has benefited, but the county. But I think there's other areas where we could do more. And one thing is, right now, we have a series of basically rehab programs that people can enter. And I want to be very clear. I mean, some people are vocal about this, that, you know, drug users are bad or whatever, but I want to be very clear that someone who is addicted to a substance, whether that's, you know, heroin or alcohol or, you know, anything that creates an addiction, that person is first and foremost a victim, and they might be a victim of their own actions,
right?
But that person needs help. That person's not, they're out of control. So I think we have to be mindful about treatment options and rehabilitation options, and I think also some of the faith-based rehab options that we have. Will's Place is one of them. There's a number of them where people not only get treatment for the drugs that they're on, but they also get support with vocational training or whatever to help them, create some hope.
Yeah.
I think it's important that we recognize where we are as a county and that we push for faith-based options for folks. And, maybe not everybody can fit in that program, but I believe that a relationship with Jesus Christ gives someone hope, and hope is what is needed to overcome addiction.
Right.
One major thing we can do, whether you are Christian, not, whether you believe in faith-based rehab or not, is there's not a detox facility within Stanley County. So right now, before anybody can enter a rehab program, they have to go somewhere and detox and get cleaned up so that they can actually enter treatment. And that's something that we could easily solve.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the other thing, is and this even goes back, but this even goes back to our issue. Some people say, well, the local don't have nothing to do with the Fed. This even goes to our southern border.
Close them.
When you shut that southern border down, you have just at least 80% of the drugs coming into this country that reach Stanley County will be stopped.
Yep.
So if we limit the intake of the illegal drugs coming in, we have less people going, and then that's the other thing of bringing in the job growth and giving the young kids something to do. We, as kids, we had stuff to do, so we didn't have just to go into to using drugs, and tighten up penalties. And, because I know there's sometimes I've heard they don't get arrested, or sometimes if they get arrested, they beat the policeman that arrested them, they beat them back to their town before the policeman can get the paperwork done. These low bonds for people that but jack them bonds up to where there's no way possible they can afford it. Keep them in jail till, the people that's distributing and selling these things.
Yeah.
Hey, can I say something real quick?
Yep.
So this is something that I think will affect us at some time, both, school board and county commissioner. And I had a friend of mine. He works in the school system in I won't say what county it is, just for purposes, but he's a janitor, one of the head janitors at a school system, adjoining county. And so one of the kids had something laced with fentanyl, and it went into the school system. And needless to say that the sheriff's department and the school board covered it up. And I don't even think there was anything done through the news. And I know specifically because my friend had to clean it up.
Yeah,
that's something that again, I don't even think Stanley County's looked at it, but it's going to get there to a certain point if we continue to allow,
That's exactly right.
things to happen. And then number one, is the school system prepared for that? That's a high level question.
I can tell you the answer
And then the
to that.
second part is our sheriff's department ready for those types of things too?
Yeah, I've talked to folks in the sheriff's department, and I've been very lucky to have a relationship where I can ask those kind of questions. But they're definitely aware. A lot of the fentanyl specific deaths, and I keep talking about fentanyl because I do believe it's the most dangerous.
I believe so.
And it's so deadly. But we've had deaths that have occurred because someone bought something that they thought was cocaine or methamphetamine or even I think marijuana. Don't quote me on that, but that it's been contaminated. And then we've had people die. Literally die because they thought they bought cocaine and they wound up with cocaine laced with fentanyl.
Yeah. Our
sheriff's department is definitely aware of that. I don't know how anybody can be prepared in a school system or wherever to deal with that other than having the Narcan available and the education that this is out there, this is happening, and you can't trust anything. It's not like when we were growing up. I mean, I heard tell of people using cocaine.
Yeah.
Definitely marijuana. That was a thing.
Yeah.
Plenty of beer and liquor and stuff.
Yeah.
But like, I didn't know fentanyl wasn't around. And heroin. I never knew anybody to use heroin. Mm-mm. Prescription pain pills became a thing in the late 90s, early 2000s. But it's a whole new world, and our kids are dealing with this. And they take something they think's an ecstasy or something, and it's fentanyl, and they're dead.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the grim reality. I was reassured when I spoke with folks in the sheriff's department. North Carolina has a law that allows for basically second-degree murder charges for someone who distributes drugs that lead to death. So, in other words, if I'm a dealer and I give you, not just sell you, if I give you something that you take and you consume it and you pass away, I get charged with murder.
Which
that's 100%.
Props up to our state for that. The next one I wanted to talk about, and this is something I've had several people tell me this, is we've had some issues, and we believe to be fact, but at any rate, that we're actually having illegal immigrants bust in, or not illegal immigrants, I'm sorry, homeless bust in from Charlotte on buses, Greyhound buses, homeless people from the Charlotte area being bussed into this county, for housing and things. And it's like, on the outside, that seems like a great thing. Oh, we're being so, but who made that decision, and how much is that costing taxpayers? That's costing all of the county taxpayers money for that bus, and that, Mecklenburg County is paying for the bus. Well, we've got to pay for the housing, and who got asked? Could we do that?
I don't know who got asked, but I know I've heard the similar rumor of who set it up, and it's a sitting county commissioner, not the one that I'm running against.
Can I just go ahead and name him?
Go ahead.
Peter Asciutto.
That's who I had heard.
Who is running for re-election right now. He's the one that opened up the bus route back.
But why?
Yeah, what's the...
Yeah,
well,
why did he become a vaccine ambassador and send emails
exactly
to people about wearing masks during COVID? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
But real quick, so Peter's not from Stanley County.
No, he was born in New York and grew up in Florida. He's been here for a while, but he's definitely not from Stanley County.
So the only ties that he has here is just a home.
Yes.
And trying to set Stanley County up, but then bringing his own agenda in here to affect our county is to me is ignorant, and there should be some kind of consequence.
Josh, we need to find you a political place in Stanley.
Yeah.
There are plenty of options to choose from.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to call it like it is. I mean, these people come in to our counties to think that they're better in the county or to help the county, and then really their viewpoint is not agreed. And I don't understand from those that have voted these folks in who say they go under the pseudo of they're a Republican or a Democrat or whatever they case, they're progressive or so on and so forth. But for them to bring their ideologies and their aspects into this county doesn't I think, go with the values that are in or of this county.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's why it's so important that people actually read and understand and research, because people tout the fact that Stanley County is a red county. In fact, I mean, you cannot get elected to a county office as a Democrat now.
Right.
In this county, it's not going to happen. But while that's good, I guess on so many levels, it's also bad because there, with the absence of a reasonable Democrat party within the county, that means if someone has aspirations for political office, they're going to register as a Republican. They're going to run as a Republican. They're going to call themselves a conservative, but they're not.
Yeah.
And they don't reflect the values. So that whole concept of voting for the R
Right.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work
Well,
in Stanley County.
No, and that's, well, really it doesn't work anywhere because,
Agreed.
Republican or Democrat, if you, it's kind of one of those sayings my dad's always said, if you took all the politicians and put them in one bag and shook them up and then dumped them out, you couldn't tell none of them apart. And that's really become the truth to where your Republicans they're no different than it's more the uniparty is what we're seeing. And, even the guys that are in counties, and we briefly talked about this, because I'm really, I know this stuff goes on, but, I know, you may be Republican, but there's people, I'm your friend, and if you vote for me, I'm going to do this and this, but yet they're kissing the ring of the top political people here in the county, and and then there's backroom deals and I really believe the Bible says that the things done in secret or in the dark will be exposed by the light.
That's right. Yep.
So, there's some, if we start calling people out, we're going to get in trouble. Well,
then I'm in trouble.
I'm your huckleberry.
Yeah.
Enough is enough. And, when we have to start standing up and calling a spade, if you're doing stuff crooked, you're going to be exposed and you're going to be called out, and you need to answer to the people that put you in office of why you're doing these backroom deals,
Yeah, well, Mr. Asciutto needs to have the homeless living at his house.
Well, that's my thing.
Let's see if that changes any of his opinions on having the homeless at his
bus them to his house.
I think the main thing is like if there were no issues in Stanley County and we didn't have citizens of Stanley County with problems,
Absolutely,
that needed help, then the right thing to do would be go out and help other people. Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the answer, but as long as we've got people suffering in this county, I'm not really interested in trying to go solve somebody else's problems.
Exactly.
I think one thing you said that really just kind of set me in motion. I mean, if you look at the Republican Party, how many people jump behind Donald Trump?
Yeah.
How many people jump behind Mark Robinson?
Mm-hmm.
How many people jump behind, Vivek Ramaswamy?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I like what he said.
Yeah.
All political outsiders.
Mm-hmm.
Celebrated political outsiders.
Yeah.
For the longest time in the GOP headquarters in Stanley County, there was a picture of Mark Robinson hanging on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everybody loves Mark Robinson. I love Mark Robinson. He's a fantastic dude.
Yeah.
What makes him any different than somebody who's coming into a county level role saying, hey, I see something I don't like and I want to change it?
Absolutely.
Why does that county level person have to go through the process of making friends and shaking hands with the key players?
Yeah.
I don't have anything against those people.
No.
I don't agree with them, from a policy standpoint, but I don't want to be part of that.
Yeah.
I want to be part of a solution in this county.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'll say to that is I have no business dealings in Stanley County whatsoever. Now, unless you count some hay sales, and I sell a cow every once in a while.
Right.
But like what feeds my family has nothing to do with any business or any investment in Stanley County. I have no vested interest. Everything that I'm doing is costing me.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want it to be a great place for my kids, for your kids, for farms and agriculture, so that our country and our county can support a healthy rural lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of, and I was talking to you, and I know Megan knows this, but when we look at even like the issues in the schools, when we look at the drug issues we have here and some of the other things, I pledged to both of y'all, and I told you, Levi, the other day on the phone, it's your job, your guys' job to pass the laws or to govern our school and our county on the legal side of it. But it's time for the church to stand up and do our job. There's the natural side, and then there's a spiritual side.
Yeah.
We're fighting. It's no longer, you've heard it said, Democrat versus Republican. Right. It's now good versus evil, right versus wrong. Right. And we, us growing up, we had a black area and a white area. Yeah. Now everything's gray, because what's right for me may not be right for you. Yeah. It doesn't matter if it's morally wrong. And it's up to the church to step back up and say, this is morally how we're standing, and we're not moving. And if it's a fight you want, then it's a fight you got. Yeah. You know, I've had people say this, and I know this may blow some people's mind, but when my kids were in school and we had issues, we fought. And one of the principals, and I won't even say their name, but we ended up getting along very well. But he told the principal at the middle school, he said, look, the Barbies, these people can be your biggest asset, or they can be your biggest ass. You know, and, you know, the point of that is if you're doing what's right for the kids, I'm going to be your biggest cheerleader. If you're doing what's right for the county, I'm going to support you with everything I got. But if you start going against the children and against what's good for the county, now we got a problem, you know. And I just, you know, I really appreciate you guys coming on here tonight, taking time out of your schedule, because what I think some people don't realize is y'all are not like the big politicians that when y'all run for office, y'all stop everything and just travel in tour buses. And, you know, they drove in their own vehicles. Megan's kids are over in the youth room watching some TV and chilling. You know, your kids are at home, or your wife, you know, I think she was teaching a Bible class tonight. They still have lives. They still have work to do. But they're taking time out of their schedule to speak directly to you guys who are going to put them in office. Now, I said, y'all going to vote for them. It's non-negotiable, especially here at my church. At Gleaning Mission, you're going to vote for them. That's a dictatorship. No, I'm telling you, I know in my spirit that these two right here are the right people for the job. I believe that we're at a Ruth moment, and that y'all have been appointed for such a time as this. Mm-hmm. Y'all are wanting to do what's right, not just for the county, but for the people in it. And like what you said, the only vested interest you have in this is your kids. Mm-hmm. That's why you're doing, it's that next generation, you know. And, you know, I believe y'all know enough about me is if you get in office and you're not doing it, we're going to be talking again. That's right. But, you know, I want that relationship with you guys so that when you get on the school board, you can call me as a pastor and say, I need prayer in this area. Our schools need, and for the county, we need prayer for this. We need that. Our pastors need to have relationships that are close-knit with the leaders of this community so that we can provide the spiritual, y'all can provide the legal, and then we go back to what I read earlier. When the righteous rule, the people rejoice. And I believe this county can be what it needs to be. And as y'all bring the growth, the church gets off its butt and we bring revival. And I believe that this county can be turned around 100%.
And Wes, I think that doing these types of things allows these guys to be accountable for what they're doing. That's right. Because otherwise they wouldn't be getting out here in front of this congregation, these folks on YouTube, this county. And then it allows us to be accountable to them too, saying, "Hey, we're going to support you. We're going to be behind you. Y'all take
my support as this church as a whole, as their pastor. We're going to support you guys." And you know, real quick before we jump off, I just want to take just a few minutes and I want to pray over you guys, if that's okay. Absolutely. And then we'll close this out. But Heavenly Father, I come before you as your ambassador. And Father God, I lift up Megan and I lift up Levi. And Father, we just ask that your hand be upon them. I do believe that this is a Ruth moment, that you have appointed them for such a time as this. And Father, you know more than anybody that we need godly men and women serving in office that are ruling and reigning over us and our children, that are making policies that not only affect us and our billfolds, but most importantly, our children. And Father, I just ask right now that your hand of favor be upon Megan and Levi. And Father, that your hand of blessing not only be on them, but their families. And Father, that you would shine a light on them and that people would begin to see this is the kind of people we need in office. This is the kind of people we want to rule and reign over us and our children. And Father, I speak a hedge of protection and safety towards them and over them. And Father, that any lies or misconceptions that's tried to be spoken against them will be struck down immediately, and that the truth will always be present and made manifest. And most of all, Father, that through this, you be glorified and lifted on high. And Father, we thank you for it. We praise you for it. In your holy name we pray. Amen. And amen. Real quick, Megan, you got any last words you'd like to say before we get off?
If anybody would like a task, we do need poll workers.
Right. Now, we are talking about that in the church. We've got a lady that's already registered. We've got one that's getting registered. And that's one of those things where I've told some of our people, and we're going to announce it more, yeah, you can't walk around and pray out loud, but you can pray.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
You know, and we need that, because whether you believe it or not, the devil's working, and it's time that we start putting God back in there, because God wins every time.
We really
Or whatever, where voting happens on
we need a lot of
voting day.
people.
It's all over the county. And unfortunately, and especially during a presidential election, there's a lot of people that show up that don't know anything about the county level positions. And so you can get a big swing in voting outcome just simply by having people there to talk.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, guys, I appreciate it. We went a little bit long, but I think this was very informative. Do me that favor you always do. Hit that like button. And, of course, if you didn't like it, hit the dislike button. But let us know what you think. Those of you that will help us, take just a few moments and hit that share button. But don't just share it. Make a caption over the top of it so that the people that's on your friends list will actually read, and you tell why you believe they need to watch this to be informed in this county about this upcoming primary election. Very, very important. So do your job and help share this all over social media so that everybody can go to the polls and be informed, believing they're voting for the right people. Guys, thank you. We'll see you next week, and God bless.